We are still in the first briefing, and we're on the 2018-19 final budget amendment. Dr. Swift.
Thank you, Madam President and trustees. Trustees, as you recall, we do a final amendment in June. Trustees, this is where we're just really rectifying our spending from the year. And then the next time that we see this, it will be the audit, the final audit right at Thanksgiving time. So Mr. Dimitro is going to walk us through this. Trustees, you knew that we were scheduled to end the year at about $2.8 million deficit use of our fund equity. We're delighted to share that due to our internal measures, we're going to finish the year slightly better at about $2 million. And I appreciate Mr. Dimitro and Ms. Matheson, who scour the accounts and really work with me to make sure we find every penny we can. Trustees, I will be briefing you over the coming weeks because, as Mr. Dimitro alluded earlier, even though it's June, this isn't finished. They'll continue to rectify, so I always update you as we go through the summer as to how it's coming along. The auditors will show up, later, August, September, right in that time. They'll show up on campus. They'll actually room in with us for a few weeks. And so we'll keep you posted throughout that process. But I always love the final budget amendment because it does give us a preview into what the audit will show. Not exactly, but pretty close. So with that, Mr. Dimitri, take us through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Swift. We start with our revenues, and we are adjusting our revenues to increase by $2.6 million. And part of the process that we do is that we review what we have in the budget, and then we make predictions of what is to happen. And there's, I shouldn't say predictions, you already know most of the information. We look at like the taxes. We've already received our taxes. We already received our last payment, so we basically adjust our books to exactly what we have received. We look at a state aid, the money that we get from the state, and then there's adjustments that happen every month, basically. And so the latest state aid report that we have, we adjust to the latest state aid report that we have, which is for May. And any other revenue that we receive or we know there's changes, then we adjust our books. And we do the same thing with our expenditures. We project, we know how much people's contracts are, so we've paid so much, and we made all those predictions. So on the revenue side, we are changing our budget to add $1.3 million due to final tax collections. And also on the state revenues, we're adjusting for a variety of reasons. Part of it is we have received adjustments to our state aid because of a tax base. When the tax cases that are settled, then because we're supposed to get less in taxes, then whatever we get from the state increases. So from the last time we adjusted, we already adjusted our property that from the state aid, but there was more adjustments that happened since March. Our special education funding, again, is the same thing. It's adjustments for prior years. It wasn't from this year. And then the last piece has to do with international students, our F1 visa students, where the state passed a law last year that you could either collect from the students or you can collect state aid, which in prior years we were able to do both. So they passed the law last year that it took effect for this year, and then they reversed that for 1 year. So when they reversed it a few months ago, then we had approximately 30 international students. So then we're able to collect state aid for those students. So that's that adjustment. On the federal, there's small adjustment on our federal revenues of 27,000. And then on our Medicaid, we have been collecting approximately $150,000 per student, per year for Medicaid services that our staff provides to Medicaid eligible students in the special education area. So we've made several changes to the process last year and also this year, and we budget, instead of collecting 150, approximately 500,000. So now we're adjusting it back to 375. So we're getting more than twice as much as we were getting in the past, but not as much as we hope to get. But I know in the future we're still working on those processes to be able to claim more. So, so those are the changes to our revenues, and you can see the numbers over here. And on the right-hand side, we have where the variances are, and we are comparing in the third column, we have the proposed final amendment, and we're comparing it to a last amendment that we had on March 20th. So that's what this variance is. But you can see the progression from where we approved it last June, and then how we made some big adjustments here, and then some pretty small adjustments, like 1% adjustment to our revenues from a prior amendment that we made in March. So on the expenditure side, we're adding approximately $1.7 million. And that's when I talked earlier that we looked at people's contracts, what we've paid, what we still have to pay on 26 pays, and all those, when people retire, they get, their whatever vacation they have. Sometimes if they've been with us for a long, long time, they get sick days, all that kind of stuff. So we kind of calculate that. Then we looked at some of our contractual services that we provide, and there's many, from transportation, custodial to, I would say, substitute teachers, coaches, all those services for special education services. And so we make estimates what we think we're going to need. And then we looked at also other items, supplies, materials, and so forth, and where we had money. So we moved things around out of the supplies and materials and put it into the contractual service where we think it's going to be needed. So it's more of a moving around. And that's what Dr. Swift was talking about looking at our budget and kind of buying what we need, and then what we don't need, we don't buy, and then we move things around a little bit. So this is what our expenditures look like. And you can see where the money is going into basic programs, which is basically elementary, middle, and high school. It's usually a teacher in front of kids. This is instructional staff support services, and those are, again, some of it could be parapros, some of it's in the special education areas and those kind of things. And then in transportation, about $289,000. That's where we were moving things around into those areas. But a lot of it has to do with salaries and benefits, so it's all mixed up in there. So what is the net impact? So basically, a bottom line improves by $862,000. So now we are projecting still a loss of approximately $2 million, whereas before it was a loss of $2.8 million. So we're expected to be at a $16.3 million, which is 6.35 of revenue, 6.3 of expenditures, which is $911 per student, or 23 days of operations. So this is what in summary, what what it looks like. Addition of our revenues about 2.5. Additional on our expenditures 1.6. We're approximately $862,000 better. And then you can see we're projecting a little better. And then you saw, when we did the monthly monitoring report that we're doing better than we did last year. So we continually try to improve our financial picture. So this just has everything, the revenues and expenditures together. I know it's hard to see, but I know you have, hopefully you have a packet that has a page, which is not in a PowerPoint, so it's much clearer to see. But I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. This
Okay.
was very informative. I know there's a lot of work that goes into finding the money, finding areas where we could be more conservative. There's a lot of work that goes into it behind the scenes. And that being said, I'm pretty sure that myself and other trustees are pretty committed to maintaining a healthy fund balance and making sure that the state doesn't come in to take over and we lose our local control. I'm pretty sure of that. There are lots of things we want to do, and it's in our heart and our best interest, and we want to do for everybody in general. But it's just if the money simply isn't there, that's what we run into. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.